A lot of times you may come across videos comparing velocity banking and the debt snowball method, going over how they're different and which strategy is best. But the reality is they are two very powerful strategies that can be used in combination to accelerate your debt repayment strategy despite their distinct approaches. While the debt snowball method is rooted in a psychological approach emphasizing the satisfaction of paying off smaller debts first to build momentum, velocity banking takes a much more numerical and strategic approach by leveraging some sort of line of credit to pay off debts faster. And when it comes to paying off debt, it is crucial to consider both the mathematical and psychological aspects since it is a multifaceted endeavor that extends well beyond the numbers alone. While the mathematical dimension involves optimizing interest rates, minimizing costs, and strategically allocating resources, the psychological component addresses the emotions, motivations, and behaviors associated with financial decisions. So in today's video, we're going to go over some of the core benefits of how these strategies can work well together. Please note this video is not going to be focused on explaining in depth how each of these two strategies works, but rather how they can complement each other. If you don't already have a good understanding of how velocity banking works or how the debt snowball method works, I first recommend watching our explainer videos on these two topics. We'll leave a link to each of the video topics down below in the description. It's quite well known that the debt snowball method isn't always going to be the most mathematically advantageous strategy when it comes to paying off debt, but what it can do is build momentum through small wins. And although these small wins can seem purely psychological, the reality is they are not. They also directly impact one's financial situation by improving things such as one's credit score. As more debts are paid off, the credit utilization ratio improves, positively impacting one's credit score. And this is really one of the core ways that the debt snowball method and velocity banking can work well together. And that's because when we look at velocity banking, one of the fundamental requirements to be able to achieve this strategy is to have access to some sort of line of credit, such as a HELOC. But if you're someone who has a low credit score along with high credit utilization, it may be extremely difficult to get approved for an additional line of credit on top of the debt you already have. And even if you are able to get approved, it likely won't be at a favorable interest rate, which will of course eat into the benefits and value that one expects to see from velocity banking. That's why it can potentially be a good idea to first start using the debt snowball method to improve your overall financial situation before starting velocity banking, even if you've already been approved for a line of credit. This will of course build momentum, but what it'll also likely allow you to do is get a much more favorable interest rate on your line of credit. As well, by using the debt snowball method before velocity banking, you will be paying off your smallest debts while of course still making the minimum payments on your other debts. And as you begin to pay off your debts, one by one, you reduce the number of payments that you need to make. This will in turn free up additional cash flow, which you can then use in two strategic ways. One, you can use it to make larger payments onto your remaining debt, or two, you can use it to build an emergency fund. Each of these options has their pros and cons relative to the other, but by building an emergency fund, it puts one in a much stronger position to implement velocity banking. And as talked about extensively in other videos on this channel, implementing velocity banking without an emergency fund is extremely risky due to the fact that you're borrowing additional money through a line of credit to make a lump sum payment onto your debt. And if you have a sudden change to your income and you're not able to pay back that line of credit, it can easily leave you in a much worse place than where you started. As well, another key risk that is often highlighted on this channel is that if you lack financial discipline, velocity banking is likely not a good strategy for you. And that's again because with velocity banking, you are gaining additional leverage, which you must control properly to succeed with the strategy. And this is another area where the two strategies can work well together, as a debt snowball strategy can serve as a sort of psychological test to see if you have the ability to lay out a plan and stick to that plan. If you implement the debt snowball method and fail to stick to the plan, well, that should likely be an indication to steer clear of something like velocity banking. But the good news is you will likely have saved yourself from a much more costly error if you had just gone ahead and implemented velocity banking. And the opposite, of course, can be true. If you do succeed with the debt snowball method, you can be more confident that you will have the required discipline to implement velocity banking. Of course, there is no guarantee that just because you successfully implement the debt snowball method that you'll be able to successfully implement velocity banking, but again, it can be an indication that you have some level of control over your finances. That's all for today's video, but if you did find the video to be helpful, please give the video a thumbs up and let us know down below in the comments if there are other topics related to everyday finance and velocity banking that you would like to see covered on this channel. Thanks again, and we hope to see you next time.